Hello and welcome to this incredibly exciting episode of Gemini Rising. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Natalie Sadie and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Anne Woolke.
Hello.
And today's guest, I have to read this because she's essentially a one-stop shop for all things spiritual. That's what I decided. So she is an astrologer, an intuitive, a singer-songwriter. She creates jewelry. She is the founder and creative of the Moon Goddess Training, the Earth School for Light Workers and Channel for Grace. She reads human design and gene keys. And I am so excited to have her on the show today. Jai Gobind, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I've been kind of waiting for this opportunity for a while now.
Well, so you're saying you manifested us, huh?
Maybe.
But and also Natalie forgot to say that you are a super Gemini as well. Not only Gemini rising, but Gemini everything almost.
Yes, Sun Gemini, Venus Gemini, North Node Gemini, Chiron Gemini, Gemini rising, and it's all in the 12th house.
That just blows my mind. And for those of you that were watching the live chat while waiting for us, because we were running a little behind to go live, between Saturn moving into Aries, and I mean, technically it's already conjuncting Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, but the exact conjunction hasn't happened yet. That shift in energy and the go, go, go of everything is a lot. It's made me feel very ADHD today, because today's the first work day where I've had to deal with it. I know Anne's been crazy busy today. I jumped on
crazy for ever since Saturn went into Aries. It's just been like, whoa, it's exactly what they said it would be like, right? Just everything's coming, like you can see it on a conveyor belt. I feel like Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory.
This morning I was like talking to my husband on the phone and telling him, oh my God, I think today I have the Jack Black syndrome. And I was acting crazy. He's the crazy comedian.
Yeah.
I'm a comedian too at heart. Yeah, I had this like surge of energy that's been going, and I'm so excited. I'm like just excited about the eclipse tomorrow, excited about the conjunction. Like so many fun things are like happening right now. If I really do feel it.
Yeah.
I agree. And I'm excited by the drive, and I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes things for what's coming next work-wise. But I did say to Jai, as we jumped online and were sort of preparing, I said, I ran a marathon to get here today. She's like, where did you come from? I went, my bedroom, like around the corner. It was the marathon existed in life. It wasn't about an actual physical journey. It was just fielding the phone calls that were all important enough that I had to take. I couldn't put them off till later and all the things. So I guess that would be my first question to you, being an astrologer. Is this the energy? Am I reading it correctly? Or at least my interpretation of what I'm experiencing? Is this what Saturn, Neptune in Aries is going to be for the next at least 2 to 3 years of just go, go, go?
I kind of think so. This is a really good question. Yesterday, I just did a workshop where I talked about the conjunction and how and where it lives also within the human design lens and the Gene Keys lens. And there's so much happening that's activating this like energy of fire that I kind of feel like, yes, that is like momentum. And I know that it's coupled also with the new year of the fire horse. And although if you read the Chinese astrology and depending on what sign you are and how it compares to your sign, it can have a slightly different like reading. But when I tune into the energy of like the horse and the energy of like the element of fire, everything is like, okay, here we go. Like it's getting turned on. Aries is the spark. It's the cardinal fire, right? So it's sparking something into action. And so it feels very like there's a beginning. It's the start off point. Almost feels like a horse race is about to happen. And the conjunction and this week and the eclipse, it's all like they're opening the gates and the horses are like, let's go.
Yeah, that's perfect. I can sense a couple of those wild horses that kind of try to get out of the gate too soon. And it really feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you mentioned, okay, so I don't even know enough about human design and the gene keys to even ask this question, but how does human design and how do gene keys relate to the eclipse? I mean, what is that? What is it activating right now?
Yeah. So the eclipse itself is happening on a gene key that's called the 30th gene key. And it's also the 30th gate in human design. So the gates and the gene keys are the same in the sense that they both stem from the I Ching. There's 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. So human design has 64 gates, whereas the gene keys has 64 gene keys. So when you're talking about the 30th gate in human design, it's coupled with the 30th gene key. So
Okay.
the frequency of the gene keys is they have a spectrum of energy. There's a shadow frequency, there's a gift frequency, and then there's a divine frequency that they call it the Siddhi, Siddhi. So it comes from the Sanskrit language, I believe, from India, the Eastern traditions, that word Siddiq. But anyways, so you're either going to be in the expression of like the shadow of it. The point is to transmute that shadow into the gift. And then eventually you can get these glimpses of like the Siddiq frequencies, which are like the divine, the highest vibrational possible like emanation of that Siddhi. So the gene key, the 30th gene key, which the eclipse is happening on, it's the shadow of desire, the gift is lightness, and the Siddhi is rapture. So you would take the meaning of that and like merge it with what is an eclipse. It's like revolution. What is an eclipse in Aquarius? It's like the new world. It's also community. It's also, Uranian wild card type of energy. The eclipse is also happening at like 28 degrees, which is like high in the decans. It's like we're almost to Pisces season, basically. And we have been having the new moons at those like high degrees, which to me feels like an evolved form of that energy. So it's an evolved form of Aquarian energy coupled with shadow of desire, gift of lightness, Siddhi of rapture, which talks about it's the clinging fire, which is so interesting because the eclipse itself is called the ring of fire. And the reason is because it's not a total eclipse. Like if it was total, the moon would completely cover the sun for like a moment. But this time it's like not exactly covering it. So it looks like there's a ring around the moon. That's why they call the eclipse the ring of fire, which is interesting because of the combination between that and the fire horse, between that and 0 degrees of Aries, which is the fire sign. There's so many things that are coming together. And then this energy of like the clinging fire of the gene key and the human design gate, which talk about the yearning for something, like desires. Like I yearn to have an experience. I yearn for like a feeling. I yearn for like an emotion. And when that desire stays at a really low vibe, it's never like satiated. You can't ever satiate it. But if when it rises to a higher frequency, it becomes lightness and then rapture, where you just fall in love with like the experience. You just like surrender to the magic of the moment. That's how I would interpret it anyways. But that's how I combine the meanings.
Okay. Yeah. And this eclipse is also going to be trining Uranus, right?
I believe it's actually making a square to Uranus. So yeah. So
right. It's still in Taurus. Duh.
It's actually intense because of that. That's creating like some tension.
Right.
Friction.
And it's squaring my natal Venus at the same time too.
Oh, wow.
So, and I noticed, I watched Gemini Brett talking about the eclipse this morning, so it got more Gemini fuel here, but he also mentioned how Venus will be on the North Node. So
yes. Yeah. Which is good. I mean, because I think it's cool that Venus is in Pisces, where she is exalted. So she loves like think of Venus in Pisces, I think of like the mermaid vibes, but like the good mermaid vibes, not like the siren. I'm just kidding. But it's like this, like, it's beautiful. It's like romantic. It wants to just, imagine that place. That playfulness of like the imagination is a really beautiful place for Venus. And for her to be with the North Node, in my eyes, it's like, okay, they're calling us back to focus on, the future, North Node, destiny, and on like love and like, I feel like you could say intimacy, like compassion, like compassionate intimacy.
Mm.
Yeah. Your opinion, because most astrologers, whether they be sort of in-depth astrologers or social media astrologers that are just putting out little snippets of information, are all talking about how this is the point where our world is shifting and life as we knew it is not going to exist anymore. And a lot of us talk about how that happened in 2020 anyway. The world shifted in a way that we're never going back to those pre-2020 days. But this is obviously another moment of that big shift. Do you see the same thing, that life is shifting in a way that we'll never be able to go back even to what the last 5 or 6 years are? And what direction do you see the world moving in? Like, is it a positive thing? Is it dependent on our perspective? Is it, what are your thoughts?
The answer is yes. It has definitely been changing. There's been a lot of really intense transits that have been happening, like since 2020, but like even before that. So you had like the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. You've had a lot of the outer planets that have been changing signs, like Pluto into Aquarius, and then Uranus is going to be entering Gemini, like officially this year. And then you have this Saturn-Neptune conjunction, but you also have the Neptune itself going into Aries. It's a big deal. And then Saturn also changing signs, because he spends like 2.5 to 3 years in a sign. So because we've had so many like outer planet changes, it changes the collective sphere. Like it becomes more global. It's always global, right? But like it's also very personal. But when the outer planets change, to me, it's like, okay, for sure, the collective is going through massive changes and massive awakenings. And they just keep like leading one into the other. I think it's like one door opens and we're like, okay, new dimension. And then another transit happens and it's like, okay, another door opens. We like go to another area, another like frequency, and these doors have been like opening up for years now. They're accelerating now, though. It feels like, almost feels like, okay, can we take it? I need more of this craziness. Because the problem, I mean, I don't know if it's a problem, but like when you think of the collective, most people on the planet are probably in the shadow expression of a lot of these things, and so in order for us to see, I guess, the kind of change that you see a lot of people talking about, the Aquarian age and the new world. And, we kind of talk about it as if like it's this very dreamy kind of like, oh yeah, everybody's going to love each other and stuff like that. But in reality, it's more like the Tower card, that is falling and the whole world's like, freaking out. And then somehow we have to collect the pieces, put the pieces back together, like put Humpty Dumpty back together again, but in a better way. So the world is changing. It's not necessarily going into this like lovey-dovey like future, but it's definitely, I feel that it's going to be more up to us individually to make the change. And that I think what we're realizing is that because also there's a big transition happening through the lens of human design in 2027, which is the year where we're transitioning from the cross of planning to the cross of the sleeping phoenix. I don't know if you guys have heard people mention that. And the next cross that's coming is very individual. It's all about like the self. It's no longer about like the systems. And so a lot of those, the way that we think the world should be, because it's how we've been doing it for so long, is going to completely drastically change. And it's going to be up to like every single individual to make a difference themselves. And that is very Aquarian age to me, because it's like the individual, but then the key to me is like, if you fully live in your design, which is what I love to teach, if you know your astrology, if you know your gene keys, if you know your human design fully, you know your authority, you know your strategy, you're like, you actually make a conscious attempt to live in your design. And when you do, actually the magic really starts to happen. And people that are on their little experiment can tell you, like, yeah, things start to change, relationships start to change, and I'm much more aware of everything in my life. That is how the collective will change. So it's not going to be any more about like systems. It's going to be more about like every person on their own. I think that's what's coming.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say, so this is the world in which we really need to all be living in our design.
Yeah.
Right. Do you mean living in our generator design, in our type, like I'm a 1-3, right? Both of those. How does somebody recognize that they are living in their design?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's all of it. So one of the things that I do uniquely as a reader is when I do a reading for somebody, I will pull up their astrology chart and I will just let the chart kind of start to talk to me intuitively. What stands out? What do I feel like is important for them to know in that moment? And it'll depend on who's in front of me. Because, for example, I'm a projector. I'm a mental projector in human design. And so my aura is penetrating and absorbing. So I will take, especially when I get to focus one-on-one, this is where the real magic happens. I just sort of, close my eyes and tune in, and I'll receive information and I'll be guided to exactly what we need to look at in the chart. And it just so happens that that's exactly what they needed to hear in that moment. But I will mention the basic stuff, like, okay, well, here's your sun and this is what this means. And this is your moon, and this is what this means, and you're this sign rising. This is Mercury. This is like communication. So the basic things in your astrology you should know. That's the first thing. The next thing I look at is the progressions in astrology, because the progressions tell you what phase of life you're in. So, for example, like if your life was a book, then the phase that your moon is in the progress chart is like what chapter you're on. So that helps locate you. It gives you perspective, but it locates you in your story. And what is the story? What's the deeper meaning of that story? So that's also important to know. Then I will look at your human design and I will tell you like your type, right? Whether you're like a generator or a manifestor or a projector, your strategy, like, are you supposed to wait to respond or wait for the invitation or inform, like Natalie? And then also, what's your authority? That's the most important, because authority is like how you should be making decisions in your life. So that's the third thing. And then the last thing is I'll look at your gene keys, which gives you this very beautiful, like more of like a contemplative feminine perspective on your purpose, on your life's work, what you're supposed to embody, what are a lot of the shadows that live in your chart. So when I say living aligned by design, I mean knowing all of these things about yourself. And it seems like, oh my God, it's so much. How can I take all this information in? But there are basic, simple things within each of those systems that you should know. And that's what I mean, really, when you should live aligned by design. It's like you got to know who you are. You got to know yourself fully. And then from there, your life will be a reflection of like your truth versus a fake life, or, living life under someone else's ideas or terms,
I just need to share here at this point in that I have known my astrology for some time, and I've had plenty of readings with astrology. And I had a reading with David the Leo King, for anybody that's watching this that isn't a part of the High Vibe community. He's an incredible astrologer. And I had that reading back in 2018. So I had a good understanding of my astrology. And when I started working with David, everybody kept saying, and I think Anne was probably the first person to ask me, what's your human design? And David answered her because he had obviously run the chart. And he's like, yeah, she's a manifestor. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a manifestor, with no idea or concept of what any of that meant. And so I think for the first 12 months, I had no idea. And then eventually I thought I should probably learn what this means. And I started researching, and I've got a few different ways that I started learning. And it started by just sort of reading very basic things online about the very like fundamentals that related to me, because I think that's always the first way that we learn a new, I almost like language, I guess, for lack of a better term. But so I was learning about the very basic fundamentals, and I ordered a book. And so then I was reading deeper into it. Then I went onto YouTube and would search for different combinations of my chart, like manifestor 4-6 or emotional manifestor, all these different things that related to myself. And I think a big part of me had been living true to my design, because I think especially with the manifestor, it's almost impossible to stop them from being a manifestor. Where it shifts is sometimes we have to be more contained because people get upset with us because we've got a closed and repelling aura. And so we walk into a room and we can piss people off by doing nothing. We just walk in and people hate your face and they hate who you are. And it doesn't matter that you've done nothing to them, but that's what it is. And I never understood why that would happen, because I'm like, I'm sweet. I only want good things for people. But learning that about myself, I went, oh, it's got nothing to do with me. It's what it's bringing up for them. Being an emotional manifestor with my emotions running into my ego, into my throat. I've always known I'm very powerful when I speak, but I didn't understand that when people are on the receiving end of that, it's like they're being whacked with a baseball bat. So I have to think about these things. And as I've gone further down the path, and I'm dating someone who has an incredible depth of knowledge around human design. So we debate many things about this, but the biggest thing is talking about living in your design. And what I'll say is I felt that human design kind of answered all the gaps that were left in astrology. I know some hardcore astrologers would say that there's no gaps. For me, I felt like it filled in these things. The interesting thing about learning was when I was reading, people used to ask me about who I was, and I would try and explain myself to them, and they'd look at me as if, oh, you're being so dramatic. When I was reading one particular human design book, they literally were using the exact same sentences to describe manifestors as what I would tell people when they thought I was being overly dramatic, which is a trait of mine. But when I started accepting who I was and that this is how I was built and what I was meant to do, and the fact that as an emotional manifestor, I meant to piss people off. I meant to trigger them and bring all of their emotional shit to the surface. And I've realized it's not my stuff to carry, but it makes it so much easier to move through the world. It's one of the most freeing things that I've ever learned about myself.
Me too. I'm a projector, like I mentioned, and being a projector is hard. Kind of like being a manifestor too. Yeah. Your energy is it's very different. Most people on the planet are generators or manifesting generators. So it's like, that's the vibe. You're very different from like the vibe. So life growing up for me was very difficult. Projectors are also the ones that are like the most conditioned of all the types. So they have the hardest time like peeling away like all the stuff that is not you. And it took me years, holy moly. And I started doing that before I knew anything about human design, peeling away the layers. But when I finally found out about human design, I remember the moment too. It was with my sister, and my sister had I took Dylan's course. I've read books and all that stuff and done workshops, but Dylan's course was like the main study that I did for human design. And I remember my sister had done his class first. So she knew about it before I did. And we were sitting there and we were like, we're going to pull up my chart. So we pull up my chart and it shows I'm like a mental projector. And I only have my ajna and my throat defined. And that's it. Everything else is open or undefined. So I was like, she's like, oh, she's a manifesting generator. And she goes, oh, she like has this response to like looking at it. You know, she's like, oh, you're a mental projector. And I'm like, and she's like sitting there and like, she doesn't know what to say. And I'm like, what does it mean? What does it mean? And she was like, that makes so much sense. And I'm like, And so I was like, okay, I have to know what the hell this is about. And the more I started to research about it and the more I started to learn, just like you just go and find the answers if you want to, you know, that Gemini curiosity. I did that and I was like, whoa. And all this weight that I felt my entire life of like trying to be somebody that I thought I was supposed to be just fell off. And I was like, holy moly, I can like relax now. And once I did that, it's like literally everything changed.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like to live aligned by design. You stop like going against the current.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I think is interesting as just a lowly generator, as I always say, because I'm always surrounded by manifesting generators or a manifester. I think what's enlightening for a generator is even if most people are generators or manifesting generators, I feel like we're all raised in this world to be manifestors. People want us to grow up and become like, you know, you're going to be all together and tell people what to do and go out and rule the world and all that stuff. And I would always think, why am I so good at researching on my own, writing on my own, doing what I love, all these things? But when I go in a meeting and try to say, here's what we're doing, not everybody will follow. Or if I want to initiate something like I really noticed myself that just trying to get things going was always so hard. And it made so much sense. It's like, well, I always felt like people weren't listening to me. But the other thing that helped me with that, this is such a Gemini rising moment. I'm sorry, this is going way off, but we can come back, was the galactic code, right? Have you studied that at all? I'm sure you know about it.
Is it a specific thing or are you talking about like, I don't know. What is it?
So I don't know the whole system, but I know I'm a yellow seed.
Okay. I have not heard of this.
Seed, you could be a warrior. I don't remember what else, right? And you have different colors. There's blue. There's like, I'm intrigued. Some really interesting one. I remember Abby talking about that once.
I've still got windows open from when we talked about this because I still don't understand what it is. But I am a yellow electric sun, I think.
Oh, funny. We're all yellow. But the thing is with the seed is you say things, and this is probably somewhere in my astrology, obviously somewhere in my design. But it's like you'll say things and people don't pick up on them right away, but you see them come back. You can influence people in that sort of a way that isn't recognized. So all of these things have been so useful to try to figure out, you know, because we all are. There is some textbook people try to form us all by, and we don't all fit. So
we're so unique and different, and we all have like different life experiences, which on top of our differences with our charts, that adds to it, you know? So I feel like we're just stepping into a new world where everyone is like, the mirror is on you. Like you're starting to look at yourself more. And that's the shift that we're feeling. So it's so uncomfortable when we have been, right, like you said, and taught to be all manifestors. I agree with you on that. We live in a world where like it's all about the law of manifestation, you know, the law of attraction, all these things. Like you can create your reality, and you do, but it's nuanced depending on who you are and depending on, you know, your frequency. So yeah.
See, I beg to differ. I do get what you're both saying about, we live in a world where everyone talks about manifestation, and I even talk about it in my oracle readings, because there are moments where it's just that window where we need to put out to the collective or to the universe what it is that we want to create for ourselves. And I totally get that. But I feel like we're being raised in a world, or we're existing in a world where it's all about generators, because we are expected to go, go, go. And part of that is having cell phones and, always being contactable. And it was always, even in the 90s, it was you get up and you go to work and you come home, and we didn't have the pressure of cell phones and social media. But and I feel like that was almost a little easier. Whereas now with all of that, even when you get home, if your boss calls, you're expected to answer the phone, and you're expected to still field emails over the weekend and do all of these things and just go all the time. And as a manifestor, and I've worked in jobs, people always said to me, how have you lived the life that you have? And as a model and working in entertainment, one, I'm working in an area that brings me so much joy. And so if I go, it's totally fine. But then when I stop, I hermit to the point of I won't answer calls. I won't speak to anyone. I will curl up if I've got an animal with them, or curl up on the couch and ignore the whole world, and regenerate essentially my energy before I step back out into the world. But I have worked 9 to 5s where you are expected to go and go and go. And as a manifestor, it just does not work.
And maybe it's a little bit of both,
Well, it doesn't work also for a generator if you're not responding. I mean, I think the difficult part of the world where you're constantly online or available to people is the fact that you learn to suppress your actual reaction, your actual response to what everything's coming at me and wants me to respond. And I need to have time to sit with myself and to go into the sacral and think yes or no. But in the work world that I've always been in, it's just you're expected to go and go yes, but you don't want to do this or that. And you just kind of end up making yourself sick, and your energy feels drained because you're not authentically being allowed to respond. And I think that's the difficulty for a generator, right? But if you know your human design early, and I feel like it's wonderful that people can know that for kids, right? For their own kids, because then you can help them learn how they should be acting or how they should move through the world, right? And you can help them help expose them to whatever it is that is their type as well. I mean, that's the other question I want to ask Jay. So you can respond however you want to whatever I'm saying, but we also were talking about the types right before we came online. And Natalie had a question about that and the difference between 5s and 6s. So I wanted to go to that, but Jay, do you want to say anything about the issue of kids or anything like that?
There's like a whole area of like human design where people are helping parents with their children's designs. And it mostly is just about, as a parent, if you know your child's design, if you know their type, their strategy, their authority, even just those 3 things, the basic stuff, can be life-changing. You will stop trying to force your child to be like you, because that's mostly what parents do. It's like, no, be like me, I know what's right. And it's true, parents do, they do. But the child has their own design, and maybe it's totally different. Like maybe it's like a mom that's a manifestor with a child that's a generator, or a projector mom which, oh my God, I can't even imagine having kids. I don't have any kids. As a projector, I'd be like, oh my God. Maybe you have, manifesting generator kids. If you know their design, then you can teach them from a young age to follow their authority, which is huge. That is going to make the difference. So yeah, I agree with you that it's very important.
Yeah.
I have asked every single human design reader the same question, and you've essentially just answered it. How important is it to know your kid's design? And what I'll say is I've got some very close friends that they always come to me and ask about astrology, and I answer what I can. And if I can't answer it, I go to Anne, and she always gives me all the information. But in terms of human design, I've been in their house when I've traveled to spend time with them, and the children, I think one is a manifestor, one is a projector, and I think one is a manifesting generator. So they all have different needs, right? And then I think mum is a projector, and I wonder if dad is a generator. But
one of each.
Yeah. So you're in this house,
yeah.
and when things start getting chaotic, and as kids do when they're all interacting with each other, somebody starts screaming and there's crying and I watch my girlfriend, and I'm like, if I ever had a child, you are the one I would go to and say, how do I do this? Because I've watched her walk in and say to her manifestor, have you had any time on your own? And he's like, no, mama. She's like, right. It is time to go and have time on your own, because we know what happens when you don't have that. Then she talks to the generator. You need to go over there. And then there's something else for the projector. But they're so aware of what the children need, and they've made the children aware of it. So there is very conscious effort of making sure that everybody's energetic needs are being met. And to watch that parenting style versus a mother just screaming at her kids, and I'm not judging any parent for what they do. I understand that everybody does the best with what they have and what they're capable of. But to have that knowledge so that you can say, okay, this is what we need to do, and it diffuses the situation immediately, is the most magical sorcery that I've ever witnessed in terms of parenting.
Yeah, I agree.
So to me, that's the magic that you need to have up your sleeve to make parenting easier for you and child, and to be able to nurture them correctly. So the question that Anne was referring to, and I didn't get into this, I just referenced that I had this question about the different lines in human design. So obviously 1 through 6 are the lines, and there's a whole bunch of combinations that people can be. I find at times the 5-line a heretic, and I'm surrounded by them. Majority of people in my life have a 5-line in some capacity, and I love them, and I would not trade them for anything, but they drive me up the wall at times, because there is this approach to human design and being a heretic. Well, I'm a heretic. I've always been attacked, and so I need to sort of be secretive, and I need this, and I need this, and I just sit there and go, oh my God, get over yourself. But in terms of, and I'm saying this all in jest and good fun, I'm not actually attacking anyone, because that's why I wanted to make it clear. I have a world filled with 5 lines. But then we were having a conversation about how the higher the number, I can't think of the word that was used when this conversation was being had, but it was basically the higher the number, we'll say more superior, I guess, in lines. And I'm sure that that's not the correct word. But so then I sat there as a 4-6 and went, well, as a 4-6, my line beats yours. So therefore, does that mean I'm superior? To which I was told, no, the 5-line is the more superior. You might have a high number, but no, the 5 is essentially better. And I'm like, I beg to disagree, sir. And it led to a very heated debate. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on the lines and this whole theory about the higher the number. And obviously the higher the number, you become, oh my gosh, I'm having a complete mental blank. So you've got the personal profiles, and then the, what's the word?
It's just called a profile, but it's like one line, it's 2 numbers. Then, one line is the conscious line, and the other line is the unconscious line. And everybody has like a combination of them. I feel like the lines are like states of awareness, the focuses of awareness. So like, I'm probably going to butcher this, but there's a There's a famous Ra Uruhu example where he talks about a house and like who's in the basement and who's on the rooftop. And I know that the sixth line is on the roof because they have the highest perspective. And so to me, it's like the combination makes a big difference. Some of the profiles are definitely a little more intense than others, like 5-1. The 5-1 profile, which is probably what you're referring to.
This conversation was with a 5-1, and for everyone in the chat, I'm not talking about David, so no. I have a lot of 5-1s, but it was a 5-1, yes.
Okay, so that is an intense profile to have because they have this projection field around them. So what happens is like people will, the 5 is leadership quality. It's straight up leadership and wisdom. So if you have that line, that holds a lot of power. It is about power, the 5th line. And that's why people feel that power and they react to the power, or they have a response to it, you know? So you're either like really attracted to it, or you're repelled by it, or you're intimidated by it. But it had like the 5-1 specifically. But yeah, I think that I don't think that they have like superiority. I think it's like just different states of awareness and ways of experiencing the world. So like the 1 has a very individual experience of the world. The 2 needs interaction. It's more about like me and the other. You know, the 3rd is about like experimenting with life and trying and making mistakes, falling and getting back up. You know, the 4th line is about community and connecting, networking with people. It's heart based. And then the 5th line is that wisdom, that leadership, that power. And then the 6th line is it's awareness. It's like, it's known as like the teacher in the Gene Keys. In the human design, it's the role model. So it's like everybody wants to be like the 6th line eventually, because they really do become a role model for the world, and they're admired. They become admired, especially the 4-6. I feel like they can be great eventually. You know, they can become great teachers and role models for the world that help people come together from the heart space. So it's a really fun world to explore, the world of the lines. But yeah, I wouldn't say that one has like more superiority over the others. I think they're just all very, very different expressions.
But I think that when Natalie makes it to the rooftop or wherever it is, and she's up there, the all-knowing seer of whatever, the 5s, they come to that person when they need advice.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it
No, I
might be
agree with
when
you.
she's all evolved and up at the top or whatever.
My
And
husband,
as someone
yeah.
said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, someone wrote, line 1 is in the dirt basement. That's where I am. Or that's where you all see me as. I'm a 1-3, so I'm in the dirt basement making mistakes. Anyway, I'm digging for the clues.
It's hilarious. So I was going to say that my husband is a 4-6. I'm a 2-4. So I have like the easiest profile. But a 4-6, my husband is an example of this. He has wisdom, just kind of oozes out of him. Like, and at this point in his life, he's had a lot of experiences. That 6th line, the life cycle of the life path of a 6th line is partly trial and error in the beginning, and the wisdom comes through experience. So 6th lines and 3rd lines, I love to say this, you guys chose a full life. So it's like you need to have all of the experiences, the good and the bad, in order to gain the wisdom, especially the 6th line. But the 3rd line also gains wisdom. The 6th line, though, is able to express it and literally maybe even teach about it. Not like, you know, chalkboard and like that kind of a teacher, but just in general, like you just become a teacher to other people. Like Anne said, people just come to you because it's like, what do you think I should do? Somehow you look like you know. It's an energy, it's a frequency. So there is a lot of wisdom that like pours out of a 6th line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the people I want to go to when I need advice, or the people who say things that always teach me something, they're 6th lines. So
Mm-hmm.
I will
Yeah.
say, so clearly there is two of us when we're having these conversations that are incredibly competitive. And so there are these very heated debates, but they're all in good fun. And we like stirring each other and trying to prove our points in everything that we're saying. And the word I was looking for before is you've got the personal profiles and then the transpersonal, which are more about the collective versus the more personal profiles that are, you know, about their own agenda, which is completely fine. And we all have our complementary profiles. But yeah, there is a lot of back and forth between me and any 5 line. And it's good.
But you're
fun.
also an Aries.
Correct. And a manifestor.
Exactly.
So patience and subtlety are not words you would normally use with me. But in terms of people searching for wisdom or advice, I have been that person for my friends for my entire life. And there's some people that do not like, they come to me for it and then don't like what is given to them, because I am very honest in my assessment of any situation. But the people that appreciate it, you know, and that's part of today being that marathon, in that the calls are coming in and it's people that desperately need to talk about something, and they're people that I love enough that you can't turn away. So you're just like, okay, let's go.
You know, it becomes really beautiful when you start to just allow everybody to be who they are and to like see the magic of their design or their profile or their type, because they all are amazing, like pieces of the puzzle. Like we all have our own way of being in the world. Like your profile is meant to bring something forth, right? To express something. And when it's in its like purest natural form, it becomes really powerful, like no matter what. That's why like knowing yourself at this level can be transformative in your life because of that, because you start to actually live. Like basically what I say is like living in alignment means you find yourself at the right place at the right time with the right people in the right situations. It doesn't always feel right, like good, but it's the right thing for you in that moment.
So my dad is a 1-3. So he's a personal profile and it's about his own agenda. And we traveled with my dad to Hawaii last April. And at some point I sort of said to Christopher, I said, oh, my dad, and like this is what he wants to do. And there's no, if you put a roadblock up or you go, this doesn't work for me, he gets so frustrated. And he looked at me, he goes, babe, he is a 1-3. He is doing this according to his own agenda. He goes, he's almost 80 and he's actually living exactly as he should be according to his profile. We just have to go with it. We're the transpersonal. Let's go. And it's like, okay.
There you go.
And off you go. And you're right. The beauty of accepting someone versus trying to make them change, like traveling with the generator that wants to go all the time. Great. You go do that. My manifestor self is going to nap or just take a couple of hours on my own, and everybody goes off and comes back together. And that's where the beauty is.
100%.
Yeah. So, okay. Now on the title of our show today, it says something about the moon goddess. And I know you are offering a monthly moon goddess gathering, I guess, right? I just wondered if we could switch a little bit to talking about this feminine energy and also what you do when you tap into this moon energy.
Yes. Okay. So I have a program called the Moon Goddess Training. That name, I don't even remember. It came to me a long time ago because this is like the 4th year that I'm running it as it is. And it encompasses everything that it means to be like a woman in this world. And it's a year-long program. So actually starts tomorrow. That's so crazy that you guys invited me to do this. It's like, wow, the timing is just nuts. But basically it's like there's the program itself, just to speak to that for a moment. There's 3 different levels of it. And the premise is it's all about learning who you are. Like all these things that we're talking about, I teach in this specific program. It's like the most comprehensive program that I offer. But level 1 teaches you the fundamentals of everything. And what you're learning is like, yes, your astrology, your gene keys, your human design, but you're also learning things like hermetic alchemy, the laws of the universe, like the perspective of like dimension, like what's the universe and how does it work? And what are your strongest intuitive gifts? All of it's like a well-rounded kind of like a university, you could say. I kind of call it the modern day mystery school, modern day version of a mystery school. And I was really inspired by Matias de Stefano. I don't know if you guys have heard of him or know who he is. He's Argentinian. I was also born in Argentina. I'm originally from Argentina. I just moved to California when I was like 8. So I grew up in California. But when I encountered Matias, I was like mesmerized because he talked a lot about ancient Egypt and ancient Atlantis and the temples along the Nile and how the temples along the Nile represent chakras. And from the bottom to the top would be the pyramid, right? The bottom would be the temple of Abu Simbel. Each temple rises up to the next chakra and the next chakra and the next chakra. And he would talk about how the students, the initiates of the ancient mystery schools would literally go to these temples as like schools. And they would learn everything about that one specific topic connected to that one specific chakra. And then they would like evolve to the next temple and the next temple and the next temple. So when you got to the Pyramid of Giza, you would activate the crown chakra and you would able to read the Akashic, read the information fields we're part of it, but we can read it through our intuitive senses. Everyone has access. It's not like you got to be somebody special to be able to access the information. Information is information. You will have your own unique, like we're talking, design of how that information you perceive it and interpret it. And that is also a huge part of the training. So we also travel through the temples, and I've compiled like a teacher, like all these lessons as we go through the journey, like the initiatic path. And then another aspect of it is because it's a women's class, we talk about that whole, the moon goddess, and we talk about like goddess markings in your astrology chart. We talk about this concept called the moon centers, which comes from the Kundalini yoga tradition. And it talks about that there's these centers on the woman's body, and they have emotional frequencies. And that every 2.5 days, just like the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, as women, we go through our moon centers. And it's different than our moon cycle, but these different emotional frequencies, for example, one of the days, it's like you're in the cheeks moon center, and that's the time where you're like kind of chaotic and emotionally kind of, that it's wild, like we call it like the PMSing phase. But then there's like another phase where you are very like open and compassionate, or there's another phase where you feel very, social. And so you learn about all of those and how you embody them and like what's your own unique cycle. And all of it is meant to help you understand the fullness of who you are as like a goddess. So eventually you actually become certified as an Akashic record reader, but it's through your own design that I teach you how to do that. So that's like what that's about. But it holds the frequency of like, yes, empowering women to fully be in their fullness.
I love it. So what are the markers? Where would you start looking for the markers to see which or what goddess one resonates with, or what is it that you'd be looking for?
You look at how you feel. So the way that we do it is we journal. You have to just observe yourself. And you ask yourself the questions like throughout your day in the morning, like, okay, how does my day start? Emotionally, like, what am I feeling today? What's my mood today? You can think of it as like different moods. and you'll notice that you're in like one specific mood for like a few days, and then all of a sudden you change, your energy changes, and you feel like a complete different person. You're like, I don't know what was wrong with me yesterday, but today I'm fine, or something like that. So you journal and you observe your mood shifts, swings, and emotional like expressions. That's how I teach to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so obviously this is a course for the feminine and it's called the Moon Goddess. Have you had any men actually register and do it, or have you had any men try to register and you've said no?
The second one.
Okay.
because everybody, there's so much in the class that like everybody wants to learn all the things, but it's specifically for women, and a lot of that sacred sharing space would not be the same if it wasn't just all women. So it's so funny that you asked this, because I have had along the years men being like, can I take the class? Can I just do like the replays? And honestly, I feel like a man out there needs to step up and create like the mirror version for the guys.
All right.
The reason I asked, so I was
Iggy's in here. So hey, Iggy, what do you think?
The reason I was contemplating this is I was speaking to someone recently and they were telling me that their girlfriend was on an all-women retreat in Costa Rica and it sounded amazing, all of that. But it got me reflecting that I've never done an all-female course. And I started questioning myself as to why. And I think I'm only speaking for myself, but I think I have a reasonably masculine energy, and I think I've always needed that balance of the masculine and the feminine. With that being said, you're talking and I'm like, this is a course that I would actually be really interested in doing. And when we started the show, I don't know if you saw the chat, but there were people that were saying they've done your course before and they're like, this is the best thing I've ever done for myself, like rave reviews. So it's so interesting.
Thanks, guys.
But it's so interesting to me that this was an observation I had to make about myself when somebody was telling me about the all feminine course that this other person was doing. And I started thinking about my girlfriends who've done similar things. And I'm like, why have I never done it? And the only reason I can come up with is that balance of the masculine and the feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious as to your thoughts on that. And that was why I asked if any males had tried to, because I wondered if men that were trying to do it were trying to tap into that feminine energy for the same reason in terms of creating balance.
I see. So the class itself is focused on, because the moon centers, as I learned them, they only exist in the woman's body. So, we don't really want to get into that topic, but that's the reason why it's only for women, because the men have a different moon center. They have one moon center only. So they represent the sun, right? So they are like, there's a really good analogy. I can't remember where I learned this, but the male, the masculine, and I really want to say like males, but I know we can get into like crazy discussions about this, but the men have the chin moon center and they represent the rock, and the woman represents the ocean and the waves. And sometimes the waves like are crashing onto the rock, like, like crazy. Sometimes the ocean is calm. Sometimes the ocean is playful. Sometimes the ocean like retreats. That's the difference between the moon centers of the woman and the moon center of the man. It's like they represent the steady rock that can always be there as the ocean does what it does. So it's very, very different. And I personally wouldn't know how to teach that for the man. That's why I'm saying a man has to step up, because it's like they really would only know how that works. But in terms of what you're asking about masculine versus like feminine energy, I feel like that's more of like a personal, more of like I don't want to say personality, but I feel like there are certain aspects even of me that are very masculine. It's like I have like a lot of Gemini, And even though that's a masculine sign, but there's also, this side of me that can be very, very feminine. So I don't know exactly how to answer that question. I just know that I think we all have both. And some of us are more masculine than feminine. But when you're specifically talking about like women versus men, there is another layer of difference there. And yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
no, it does. And like I said, it wasn't a specific thing. It was more my contemplation of why haven't I gone to that space, which was interesting. So then it just led to the bigger question, but I don't know that there even is an answer. I think we all end up exactly where we're meant to be, because there's different information that
right.
some of us have just instinctually, and then we develop, and we all have different areas that we develop. So yeah, it was more just, I was curious as to your thoughts on it, and you answered it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Well, I'm a moon question that I don't know whether this connects or not. But I have definitely noticed, especially with particular friends, that when they have their lunar return, and for me, when I have my lunar return, things go crazy. Like I honestly, I would think that, oh yay, I'm in my lunar energy. It's back to my, home moon. Why is the world so crazy at that time? Or is that just for air moons, for example? Not naming any people in the room.
Oh my God.
But I've said sometimes to Natalie, it's your lunar return. And it'll be sort of like, oh,
well,
what do you think?
We have established, because Anne gets constant like one woman podcasts from me, and this is relevant to the question she just asked. And when I am having a moment and I'm freaking out, I'm like, this has gone on and this has gone on, and it's always the end of the world, or I'm making some big dramatic statement. And she listens, and then she'll come back and go, okay, the moon has just moved here, and I've realized how sensitive I am to the moon in particular spots. Like, it makes me crazy. So there is this thing where it hits certain spots for us, and obviously for Anne, I'm not saying you go crazy, but the lunar return is.
Yeah, it's just always like, I'll be looking forward to it, and then I forget it's the lunar return because so many things go crazy around me. But we're both, as Gemini risings, the moon rules our second house. So I don't know if that means we embody the craziness, just comes into our material existence. But anyway, I want to know what you think, Jai.
Oh, this is so interesting. I think it depends on the sign. Obviously, it depends on the sign that you have. They're all so different. So different. It depends, and it's like, is your moon dignified or exalted or not? Is it in detriment? Is it like, there's a lot of things a lot of factors to your experience of emotions in general. And emotions are such a huge part of our experience here on the planet. Even if you have an open or a undefined, defined or undefined solar plexus center in human design, which is the center of emotions, right? Regardless, we all feel emotions. We live in this world. It also depends on like what planets you have when the moon passes. Maybe at certain times the moon is passing over a specific planet, and that's what's driving you nuts. There is. I was going to share that recently. I watched this really cool video on YouTube that talked about the pineal gland and the secretions of the pineal gland, and how this is like knowledge that was erased over time, but that when you're having your lunar return, that is the time during the month where you should fast. Like, you should fast for that whole day. And the reason is because there's a specific secretion that happens in the pineal gland, but only if you like intentionally fast and like holds the higher vibrational door open for that to happen, that it happens. So one, I think it's really cool that you're watching your lunar return also, it's like it represents like there's a new beginning. It's like your story begins again. You know, the moon came back home to where it lives for you. So I think there's just a lot of different factors to how you're going to experience the energy of the moon as it transits through the sky. I personally haven't, I feel great when the moon comes by.
Yeah, but you have a Leo moon.
Well, I do have a 0-degree Leo moon. So it's almost like I'm in heaven, you know? Anyways, yeah.
I'm going to keep noticing this. I will continue to investigate this in my 1-3
I'll
way.
send you the video that I'm talking about.
Definitely. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up two things. First of all, the guy that you talked about earlier, that
Matthias?
yes. So I'm not even going to try and butcher his name because I will, because I'm in my head about it already. But he is actually your most viewed video
I know.
on your YouTube channel, because I was watching it the other day, and he was in Egypt when you filmed that video.
I know.
Which is incredible. So I was like, yes, I know exactly who you're speaking of. So I bring it up because people, if they haven't watched it, should go and watch that video. It's fantastic. I want to go back to, unless you have another moon related question, Anne.
No, my questions just shifted to Egypt related. So,
okay.
No, you go with yours.
No, you can go to Egypt, because then I'm going to go back to human design for a minute. So let's stick with Egypt.
Yeah, I mean, since your class that you're offering is constructed around the idea of these temples in Egypt, I also noticed that you have traveled there, and I wondered what you thought, and tell
my
us
God.
a little bit about why you went and what all happened.
Oh my God. Are you ready? Because we could be here for another hour. I'm just kidding. Okay. So the backstory of why I even ended up going to Egypt. I've always loved Egypt. I've always was, everybody wants to go to Egypt. I mean, maybe not everybody, but you know what I mean? It's like one of the 7 wonders of the world. So it's always been intriguing, the culture, the hieroglyphs, all of that since I was little. Right. So this whole like side note of like, have we had past lives there? I think so. 100%. If you're drawn to those things, right? So I started doing this class. I started following Matthias. I discovered him. I don't even remember. I took one of his classes. I think it was around 2020. This was what he talked about, because he remembers his past lives, or at least one of his past lives in ancient Egypt. And he remembers the story, and he remembers like when I'm going to go way out there now. Okay. When the ancient beings, celestial beings would come to Earth and commune with the sort of the leaders at that time of ancient Atlantis. And, he was part of that community. And so he talks about the Galactic Federation. He talks about there's different, there's beings all over the universe, that we're not obviously the only ones here, that the Earth has a purpose, that there's a reason why we're here, and what it's like living here on the planet. And so I later on started learning all these things: astrology, human design, gene keys. And I did this show on Robert Edward Grant. You guys know who he is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. He's an amazing, he's like an amazing mind. He's one of those guys. He has done a lot of, he's discovered a lot of things through the realm of like math and numbers and sacred geometry. And so that's like his side of everything. Like he understands the workings through the mathematical world, the numerological world. Anyways, he had done a series on Gaia TV about Leonardo da Vinci and his works, and how they were encoded with sacred codes about ancient Egypt, specifically the measurements of the Great Pyramid of Giza, that they are found in the Vitruvian Man and other works. The Last Supper, for example, is a complete representation of the King's Chamber inside the Great Pyramid. And so I was so intrigued. I watched his whole series, and I was like, I'm going to do a show on him. Like I pick certain celebrities sometimes, and I'll read their charts on my YouTube channel. The video is still up. So I did a show on him, and I was like so mesmerized. And I looked at his human design, his gene keys, his astrology, and I showed basically how he's fully living in his design through what he's doing and what he's discovering and all these amazing things. Okay. 8 months later, he reaches out to me on Instagram, and I was like, what? And he's like, I would love to have you on my podcast. And I was like, me? I was like, I'm a nobody, dude. But I was like, oh my God, I'm a projector. So I have to wait for the invitation. So he invites me on the podcast, and that's on it's called Think Tank on his channel. Mm-hmm. But then a couple days after we record the podcast, and I did a full on reading for him in private. And he invites me to go to Egypt. So he's the one that like, he single-handedly, like he was like, okay, it's your turn to now go to Egypt. You've been teaching about all this Egypt stuff. He didn't do this knowingly. He's just like, Jai, you have to come. Let's go. You know? And I was like, what? Because he invited me as faculty. I was like, are you serious? He's like, wow. Yes, we're going to do a presentation about human design, gene keys, astrology, and we're going to be on the Nile. And so I was like, oh my God, dream come true. It exploded everything for me. So we went last February, and I don't have words to describe what that experience was like to be there. I do remember that Egypt is crazy. The energy of the land itself is so intensely activating. It's like almost too much, and everybody goes kind of crazy. People have like emotional breakdowns, and it's all over the place. When we would go to the temples, I knew the temples. Like I knew what each temple represented, which was such a different experience for me than just touristing around. Mm-hmm. So I would arrive at the temples, and I would be like, holy moly, this is so intense. And I would cry, and I would have like emotional releases, and I would just like feel the energy. I remember when the most powerful one was the Temple of Dendera, the Temple of Hathor, which is the Great Mother. She's known as the Cosmic Mother, and in that temple is where they found the first astrology wheel, like the representation of the stars in one of those rooms. I have a picture of it. It's just crazy to know that I've been there. So I remember I'm walking towards that temple, and as I'm walking towards it, I cannot hold back like the tears. And I was just like sobbing, and that whole temple is about the mother. And when I was sitting in there, I was just like held, and I felt like the presence of my grandmother that died when I was 18. It was the first experience of death for me, personal, very close. And I felt her there. And it was the same energy that I felt when I went to my first peyote ceremony. Whole nother story. But like I said, it's the most profound experience. And then Robert invited me to go again in this last May. So I went to Egypt twice last year. And then I went to Peru. Then he invited me to go to Peru. This year has been like the craziest activation for me ever. And it was the year of my full moon in my progress chart, which was in Capricorn, which matches. So it matches, my experience matches completely what was going on in my progressions too. But yeah, like I said, I could go on forever about the whole Egypt thing.
Honestly, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about an interview I did with Brianna Latipo, and Anne and I have had her on Gemini Rising, but I did a separate interview with her about her book Emerging from Darkness, and she's one of my best friends and I love her. But in that, she talks about going to Egypt and her experiences in that. I think we did talk about it when she was on Gemini Rising. Yeah. That experience is otherworldly. It is the most. I hope one day I'm able to introduce the two of you, because I actually think you would love it. Her books are really easy read, so it might be something that's worth looking into for you. And I'm sitting here thinking, I have to tell Christopher about you, because I feel like there's a connection there. And I say this because of the deep connections to Egypt. And it seems
you talk Egypt, and I just like I go to another dimension.
Both of them are exactly the same way. And I'm finding more and more people that I'm surrounded by, it's the same thing. And my mother was almost killed in Egypt. All she wanted to do was get to the pyramids and be able to see Egypt. And on day 2 of her trip, the bus driver fell asleep. This crash killed 6 Australians. There's a whole story, but my mum survived, but she died a year later as a result of the injuries.
Oh my God.
That crash. But there are so many ties to Egypt. And I think that whenever, what you said before, whenever people start tapping into it, most of us, I think, that are here have been in Egypt at some point.
100%, no doubt in my mind.
There's no way we can't have.
We're all finding each other again, and we're like continuing the work is what I feel in our own way.
I love that story though, and the opportunities that have opened up for you. That's just incredible.
Beyond my wildest dreams. 2025.
Amazing to teach in the places that you've always taught about. It's like, what? This is amazing. You know, it makes me think about when you go to a museum and there are the Egyptian artifacts. And I've talked about this before, I know, because it really, I have such mixed feelings about going into these places in other lands, right? Because these entire temples were robbed out of Egypt and brought and reconstructed. Like in the Louvre, you could go into a temple. Where else was I? I think in New York at the Museum of Modern Art. I don't remember
obelisks that are like all over the world except in Egypt that they took.
Yeah. But in New York, they have a statue of Hathor. And that was the one place where it was almost like, did that statue move? There's something about the way they installed it there or whatever they did where you can feel the magic still. Like you can it feels alive. But
I got to tell you, I got to, no, I said I got to tell you, sorry. Go ahead. There's a delay. I got to tell you about my experience with Sekhmet.
Oh, wow.
She's the lioness goddess.
Yeah.
So she's at the temple of Karnak. And I didn't know what I was going to see. And I'm walking in and the guard, there's like a little bar. Like sometimes they let you close, sometimes they don't. It just depends on the mood of the guard of the day. But I remember I went and I stood in front of her and I looked into her eyes and it was almost like a tunnel vision. And I felt like she took me somewhere. Like I froze and I felt like I was abducted. That's like maybe an exaggeration, maybe not. But I felt like she took me somewhere, showed me something. I couldn't see it. I'm supposed to remember it some other time, but she showed me something. She relayed a message to me. She took me on an experience and then brought me back. That's what it felt like to be in front of that statue. It's insane. I'll send you the picture.
Yeah, please do.
You definitely need to read Emerging from Darkness. I'm telling you, you have to read it. I will send you the link when we are done. Because
her temple experience is crazy. Because it also involved other people, right? Or there were Buddhist
monks.
Were
monks or Buddhists or something. But not only that, she went, and I'm not going to try and retell it. I'll let you read about it. But there was another thing where she was with a tour group and she went somewhere and it was the same thing. She was transported elsewhere and she felt like, I think it was quite quick. But when she came back, everybody was frantic. She'd been missing for 4 hours.
Oh my God.
Nobody could find her. And she was like, I'm great.
I get chills.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me is I don't have those clear, cognizant memories that a lot of people in my life actually do of their time in Egypt. But what I have always known, as long as I've been on this earth, is in history class in high school, in year 7, we did Egyptian history. That is the only part of the curriculum that I have any memory of. And I was fascinated. Like I remember paying such incredible attention to what was going on because it felt like I understood it and I knew it. And you were talking about the Louvre and MoMA, and I was laughing to myself because I'm like, I've been to both those places, and each time I went in, I would start off the day where I'm looking at the map and going to see, you know, the very famous pieces of art that are there and that everybody wants to go see. And I was always bored by it. And so I would always get rid of the map and I would just start wandering. And every single time without fail, the moment I put the map away and let my gut decide where I was moving in these ginormous buildings, I would end up in front of the Egyptian artifacts. It was like I was going home. And so I'm curious if either of you two have had similar experiences in terms of always being pulled or drawn in that direction.
Yeah, I definitely have. Yeah. Like I remember when I heard Matthias talking about his like remembering, he started remembering when he was really little or maybe early, like between 10 and 13, he started to actually remember, but his guides would communicate with him like the whole time that he was even smaller than that. And then they told him one day, you're going to start remembering. And the way that he started to remember was he started to have memories, and the memories were connected to emotions of the last time that he was standing in front of the Sphinx with his like community, and they were saying goodbye because it was like the end of the golden, you know, year in Atlantis, and it was, everything was like crumbling. And he asked his guides, why do I have to feel it? Like, why can't I just remember it in my mind? And he was like, because memory is through the emotions.
Wow.
When you are in front of these, I'm sure you have emotional reactions to the artifacts.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and in the Louvre, it was going into that full Egyptian temple that's constructed because Napoleon stole the whole thing. I mean, that's the thing that you can't believe.
Terrible.
But also at the Louvre, they have all those Assyrian artifacts that are like the ancient, really ancient Syrian artifacts too. It's crazy, but it is that particular temple where it just feels like it's wrong that it is there, but it also holds so much just
right.
like energy or memory or whatever it is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to actually go there and be in a temple.
You have to.
Right. So,
you have to. Yeah.
and one of my earliest memories actually is going to the King Tut exhibit. So I do think that has a place, but I remember my parents took me when I was, I guess, almost still a toddler. I don't remember how old I was, but I still remember going through the line and then seeing like these almost glowing objects, and it's the way it was lit. There's so much gold, but I just remember the alabaster, especially. I can still picture what that all looked like from being really, really small.
Wow.
So
there's something about it.
Yeah.
There absolutely is. So talking about the emotional connection, it kind of loops back to the question I was going to take us back to sort of the beginning of our conversation about human design.
Mm-hmm.
So I only learnt, and maybe I should have known this previously, but I only learnt the other day that emotionally defined beings in human design started existing relatively recently. So in the 1880s was when the emotionally defined individuals started being born. So that means for thousands of years of human evolution, there has not been this emotional definition within humans. So that means we're all quite young in this emotional evolution.
Right.
Which blows my mind. And part of the reason that conversation happened was we were watching the TV show 1883, and we were talking about humanity and getting through it. And imagine being on the Oregon Trail and trying to get across country and how people were dealing with it. And it was said to me, you got to remember the emotionally defined people were only being born in this era. So they were infants and they didn't have it. And then we're existing in a time now in 2026 where it's almost, the pendulum has swung to me in a ridiculous way that everybody's emotions matter more than anything else. It doesn't matter about work or business or professionality or anything like that, because everybody thinks that their feelings matter. And so I'm just curious as to your thoughts on the evolution of these emotionally defined beings, and the fact that we probably have plenty of human beings walking around that, one, are not emotionally defined currently, but they have never been. And so we're existing in a world where people are trying to communicate feelings sometimes to people that have no true understanding of what it is to be emotionally defined. I realize that's
coming
a lot
from an emotionally undefined being. Me. Okay. So this is a great question. When it comes to the emotional authority, right now, as I understand it, half of the people on the planet have defined solar plexus. So that means half of the people are feeling emotions, and the other half are like magnifying all the feelings that the people that are actually feeling them are feeling. Because that's what happens with the undefined or open centers. You take the energy. So for example, let's just stick to the emotional center. You take the emotions of someone else and you magnify them. So that's why the emotionally undefined people feel like they're more emotional than the actually emotionally defined people. Emotions matter the most for people that have emotional authority. The really important thing to know about emotions is that they do not have clarity in the now, ever. Emotions have clarity over time. So you have to wait to let the whole emotional wave finish. The high, the low, and then when you get back to neutral, that's when you have the clarity. So emotions matter a lot. Like, they are everything. They're the authority of people that have that emotional authority. For the rest of us, which one of you, did you say you have emotional authority, Natalie?
Yes.
In your chart. So you do, and Anne, do you?
I don't think so.
No, you said you have sacral authority. So you don't have defined, because if your emotional center is defined, you have emotional authority. It doesn't, like, it trumps all the other ones. It's the most powerful one. And it is, we're learning emotional intelligence. So the people that have this defined emotional center are, I believe, are the ones that are leading the way into 2027 and the great shift, because that mutation is happening on the 55th gate and the 55th gene key, which is in the solar plexus. So the mutation, the new cross, activates that solar plexus. So anyways, the rest of us are actually, you don't necessarily, emotions are like, you can understand people through through emotions. You have emotions. It's not like people don't have emotions. It's just, we don't have a consistent wave that is so important for us to pay attention to. So to answer your question, I think that yes, emotions are it's such a complex topic. It's like we're still learning about it. Like you said, it's like we are young to it, but the people leading the way are the people that have the emotional authority in human design. I believe.
I don't know how many couples charts you've done, but upon reflection, what I've noticed is my most balanced couple friends all have one partner which is emotionally defined and one which isn't, which can lead to difficult communication moments, but it seems to work because they balance each other out. While one's in their feelings and riding the wave, the other one's like, okay, I understand what's happening and I need to hold space and let them figure it out and sort of come back. And I have noticed, being emotionally defined, once I learned about the differences, or I had a better understanding of the differences between being emotionally defined and undefined, I then sat back and reflected and realized that all of my significant relationships, the other half has been emotionally undefined. I'm the crazy emotional one, and they're, on the other side of it, being quite calm and consistent through it. And they love me for that while they act as my rock. What I will say is, and this is just a PSA to anyone in a relationship, if you are emotionally undefined and the emotionally defined person is having a moment and they're trying to express their feelings, and you, instead of listening, say, "Oh, are you riding the wave?" It is the same as saying, are you having PMS right now, or do you have your period? It will make someone explode. It's not the thing to say. It's just,
I believe it.
it's like, how dare you? The reality is you're probably correct. It's just the incorrect thing to say.
Okay.
I have a friend. I work with her. Her name is Ashley. She's mentoring with me right now. She has emotional authority, and she's lately been going through it. And I have to, as her friend, hold space. You just hold space, and it is, you have to just wait. That's the thing. It's like you have to wait. It's all about it's a waiting game, and we don't like to wait. And that's why the impatience comes in, So we are learning. Again, the emotional authority people are guiding the way, teaching us about major patience and major surrender to feeling our feelings. Like, this kind of brings up the conjunction with Saturn and Neptune that's happening at 0 degrees of Aries, is happening on the 25th gene key and gate. And that one goes from the shadow of constriction to the gift of acceptance and the city of universal love. It's a really beautiful frequency. But the whole thing talks about how we have to heal the shadow of constriction, which means constricting like our life force energy. You need to go into acceptance, which means you need to just feel the feelings. You need to just let yourself feel the pain, feel the wound. That's how you transmute it. You can't push away or avoid feeling the feelings. So that's what we're learning as a collective, to feel the feelings and not brush them away or like get impatient with them and so on and so forth.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say to it, but I love hearing your response to it, because it's been a topic that has been discussed a lot in my household recently, the difference between emotionally defined and undefined. And now when I have new people in my life or people that I love and I haven't run their chart, I run it just to find out where they are and have that understanding. It's like, okay, this is how they're going to deal with it. And while I'm over here and just riding whatever waves are coming my way, the surfer that I am.
I love
Are you
it.
riding a wave again? No. Wait, what am I not supposed to say?
It's fine when I say it.
Wave.
It's fine when I say it. It's like when a woman goes, "Oh, I've got my period." It's fine when she says it. It's just you do not say it when you're watching them go through it.
Exactly.
That's why I said I know how you feel.
It's even worse when they say it and you know they're right and you don't want to tell them yes. No. You walk away
You need to
thinking,
learn how to
"Oh."
say it. That's the point. You need to learn a new way to say it.
Okay, so Jai, Anne and I like to end every show asking everybody the same 4 questions, because it gives us a great bit of insight into who they are. So we're going to start with, what makes you laugh?
What makes you what?
Laugh.
What makes me laugh? Like everything. I laugh at everything. It's so funny. In the last Egypt trip, one of the key features was that me and these other 2 guys on the trip had a very unique laugh. And when all 3 of us started laughing, it was like a spectacle and the highlight of the entire trip. I laugh at everything. Joy is everything to me. I love to be in that playful state like all the time. That's my natural state. It's just joy and laughter.
That's great. Okay, so then who was your biggest spiritual influence?
Whew. Okay, right away, the answer came to me and I got like super emotional, but it was my grandmother. She was the one that planted the seeds, especially towards the end of her life. She started, like, she went off on the esoteric. Like, she had books about metaphysics, all these things, like the power of now, like, and she planted the seeds for me to be where I am today. So she is the one.
And what would your advice be on for people on how to transcend fear?
Love. You have to love. You have to, like, I wrote this song. Actually, it's called The Nile. And the words came through on the first Egypt trip. The second trip, the music came to the song. And I say in that song, there's the lyrics, and it says, and one by one, you love the fear back from the dark. So that's my answer to that.
Ooh, I love that one. All right. So the last question is, what's the best piece of spiritual advice that you've ever been given?
That I've ever been given. I just heard the words live, love, laugh. And I don't know, like, it's probably just a quote that I've seen. But it's that. I think it's to be more present. I wouldn't say that I remember specifically getting wisdom from one person, but it's a message that comes through, and it's just be present and enjoy every moment and know and see like what you're grateful for. Because when you live in that energy and that frequency of gratitude, you can transmute any darkness, any shadow, any fear. And I think in my own way, I would say that living in alignment with yourself is one of the greatest, spiritual advices that we could give anybody.
I love all of this, and I feel like the three of us could talk for hours more. So I think we definitely have to make another date before 2027, because we should dive into that.
Yes.
Closer to, there is so much coming with that, and a million other questions we could ask. But in the meantime, because you said that the new course is starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So where can people find you for readings and to sign up for your courses and everything else?
Yes. So you can go to my website. It's channelforgrace.com. There's a tab for booking a reading with me. There's a tab for the Moon Goddess training. But yeah, the training starts tomorrow. I also have like astrology courses, and I just did a workshop yesterday all about the Saturn Neptune conjunction, and I host everything within my Mighty network, which is called Channel for Grace. And it's nice because it's all in one place. But that, or on Instagram at Channel for Grace, if you want to, contact me directly if you have questions about anything, I'm available. Thank you for letting me share that.
Oh, of course. And I will have all of the links in the description below for anyone that wants to just be able to click on something and get straight to it. But I always like to ask the question in case somebody's listening, so that at least it becomes like a little thought in their minds. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today. I know that we had to change the time a couple of times, but I think this happened exactly when it was meant to. And as always, Anne, thank you so much for doing this with me. I always have so much fun with all of these conversations.
Thank you so much. I so enjoyed this, and I would love to come back anytime. I can just go on forever about all these topics. It's fascinating stuff.
Amazing. Well, we will make sure that we get that booked in sooner rather than later. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to everyone that was watching this live and was in the chat, because that thing was going off. And we always love when there's that sort of energy here, and so much love for Jai. And we will see you all for the next one.
Bye.
Thank you.